My name is Fergus Madden and I'm the chairman of Atlantic Masters Swimming Club. Most of you should know. Atlantic Masters Swimming Club was set up in late 2014 by Helen Colfer here in the front row, Mark Dwyer and myself, as there was no open water club in the Galway region. We had great encouragement to set up the club from the regular swimmers in South Hill and two of our own all-season skin swimmers, Joe Kennelly and Mike Flanley. Mike's in the back there. Joe Kennelly is shy, he hasn't turned up as usual. We started the club with 12 members initially, and as of today we have nearly 60 members in the club. We are currently the largest open water swimming club in Connacht and are affiliated to Swim Ireland. Atlantic Masters is not all about swimming, as you can see from the pictures. It's about getting together and having a swim, having a cup of tea, coffee and having a bit of crack. That's what we're all about. In the winter months we have 2 training sessions per week in the pool under the watchful eye of Sebastian, our coach over there, videoing us or whatever he's doing. He's always missing. However, some of us hardcore swimmers never get out of the water and we swim all year round. In actual fact, probably 214, 215 or
14, yeah.
in the 2016 season we have competed over 30 swims throughout the country, ranging from distances of 1.3 kilometres up to 13 kilometres. The highlight of the swimming calendar for us is the 13 kilometre Francis Thornton Galway Bay swim. We had 5 members swimming in 2015, we had 16 members in 2016, and we have over 25 members this year registered for the swim so far. So it's not bad. That's over half the club, or pretty close to half the club. Every year, typically in late August or September, we hold our annual 2.7 kilometre Atlantic Masters swim in Inchispier in Kinvara. This year it's taking place on Saturday, September 2nd. So you're all invited and we'll keep you posted on it. Also in the audience tonight we have Gavin Hennigan, who has become the fastest man to row the Olympic. It was an unbelievable feat, and we were all closely watching Gavin on his tracker going across the Atlantic Ocean. We wish him well on his next venture across the Atlantic Ocean.
You're all going to swim me in, aren't you?
Yeah. We might have a go at swimming it. On behalf of the club, it's a great privilege to welcome Ned Denison here to talk to us tonight. Ned has a wealth of experience, knowledge in open water marathon swimming, and basically has every swim possible done. Some of the swims are the English Channel, the False Bay in South Africa, the Manhattan Island Marathon Swim, the Catalina Channel, the Santa Barbara Channel, and that's just to name a few. Last year in 2016 he added the Galway Bay swim to the list of his numerous swims that he has done. He also runs the Cork Distance Week every year and has trained, mentored numerous swimmers for the English Channel. Equally, the majority of the swimming competitions in Munster has been organised by Ned, and as you can see, you can expect to see him at most swims, and most of us do see him when we're down Cork swimming. In 2012 he was inducted into the International Marathon Swimming Hall of Fame, and in 2016 he was named Open Water Swimmer of the Year for Munster by the Irish Long Distance Swimming Association. We first met Ned at the Lee and Sandy Cove Island swim, and he made us very welcome down there, and it's now a regular occurrence with our club to participate in these swims throughout the year. This year actually we have 22 members already lined up to swim in the Sandy Cove Island challenge. So without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to Ned. Well, thank you very much.
So open water swimming for me is really, really simple. You start with a dream, you turn it into goal, and then the journey begins. So I was here about 6 years ago giving a similar talk just after Andrew Flanagan did the English Channel, so it's been a long time. So as soon as she sits down, what I'd like everyone to do is I'd like everyone to close their eyes. No peeking. Close your eyes. No peeking. Close your eyes. Close your eyes. Close your eyes.
You sure it's your leg?
Okay, the boat left the pier before 9 o'clock at night. It arrived just after 11 p.m. It was dark. The relay was about to start off the coast of Catalina Island, which is near Los Angeles. It was going to be a world record attempt, and Graham, he was nervous. Bob talked him into this about 6 months earlier, but it'd been a while since Graham was swimming. Graham was nervous, and he was leading off. World record attempt. It was dark, and he was nervous, and he was thinking back to, well, the last time he was that nervous, and he said, no, he wasn't that nervous when he got married. Wasn't that nervous when the kid came along. And it came into his head, the last time he was this nervous, he was on the blocks in the Olympics in Helsinki in 1952. Now you can open your eyes. World record, the old men in the sea, all of them over 80, and Graham at 84 was not the oldest. Now, how cool is that? Can you imagine him like playing canasta in the club going, yeah, I'm going to get my prostate checked next week. I'm going to, buy a gravestone. What are you guys doing? Oh, we're going to set a world record swim across the Catalina Channel. So don't anybody tell me you're too old for this nonsense. I had the pleasure of sitting at the table with these guys at the Catalina dinner that year. And Bob was the leader, and he said, yeah, he said, we pretty much think we're on the last 9 of the golf course at this point. He said, being the oldest at 86, he goes, I'm probably on the 36th hole. He said, but I'm a lousy putter. He said, I'll be around for a long, long time. The life that these guys had in them was absolutely unbelievable. Can you imagine, from the Olympics in 1952 to a world record attempt at age 84? Absolutely fabulous. So I'd like you to actually read this next section, and because I think it's what the sport's all about. For those of you who don't know what a wave shark is, that's when you look up in the water, in the open water, and like 2 waves come together and make a perfect fin. But your goggles are a bit foggy, and you swear it's a shark. It's called a wave shark. It's the most popular shark in the world. They are everywhere, even in the bathtub. So this little saying, which we've stolen and doctored up over the years, this is all about give it a go. Have the courage to do it, have the courage to tell people you're doing it, and to actually enjoy the journey of doing it. There's a lot of books on open water swimming. The absolute best book out there is something called Swimming to Antarctica, written by a woman named Lynn Cox. And in addition to everything else this woman did, she swam between Russia and the United States at the height of the Cold War, and actually probably helped bring some peace between the countries. An amazing woman, amazing story, an amazing book. In the foreword of the book, she talks about safety in the open water. And one of the things I want to do impress on everybody is that safety is important. I only have 2 more slides for you to read, and after that it's kind of pictures and stuff. So just read this, because it's just unbelievable. So 25 years later, for some reason, I ended up being one of the people who started the Santa Barbara Channel Swimming Association, having been there once in my life about 30 years beforehand. I got talked into swimming the Santa Cruz Island Swim. this one, which is longer than the one that David had nearly died on, but David was the last guy ever to do the swim. So somebody said at one point, they said, you should call David. I think he'd like to come on the boat. So I called up David, never met the man, and he and his lovely wife showed up to be the crew. Like a lot of things in open water swimming, the plan turned to crap before it even started. The wind was absolutely howling, and instead of doing the 31-mile job from Santa Cruz, I was going to do the longer swim, the one north. But the wind was absolutely screaming. So David said, well, let's go around the other side of the island and maybe head that direction. The wind won't be as bad. So off I went, and at a certain point the water wasn't really cooperating with me, which means I wanted to go that way and the water was going that way. The beach wasn't getting any closer, and unexpectedly David got in the water. I'd never had a support swimmer before, that's what it's called. And I didn't know what to expect, but I didn't really expect this guy to swim up next to me and go, "You call yourself a fucking channel swimmer? Swim, you fucker, I'll beat the shit out of you!" I got to the beach, I cleared the water. Now, I knew my name. I knew exactly what my name was. It might have taken me 5 or 10 minutes to tell somebody what my name is, but I knew my name. The young kayaker didn't like the looks of me. And so he called the ambulances. 2 of them showed up. You imagine the red boxy ones. One of them whisked me off to the same hospital that David had been in 25 years earlier. And I really pissed off. I missed the action in the second ambulance. Because the second ambulance offered to take the kayaker, and David out to the end of the pier to meet the boat, which was bobbing around looking, trying to figure out what was going on with ambulances showing up and everything. And 2 ambulance guys, the old guy and the young guy, and the old guy goes, this is told from the young kayaker's perspective, he goes, the old guy says, "Deja vu," he goes, "I was lifeguarding out there like fucking 25 years ago, some guy died doing that swim." And you'd have been what? Can't believe I missed that scene. So anyways, the dream, the goal, the journey. So the first part's the dream. So the good news is you're here. And you all know people who don't dream at all. You all know people, they get up, they shuffle off to work, they have the same lunch there every day, they go home, they watch the news, and go to sleep. They don't do anything different, they don't have any dreams. As long as the pension comes in and they get to die and get buried in the family graveyard, they're happy enough. They don't dream at all. The dreaming is incredibly important, because if you don't have the dream, nothing else happens. So you might have it because you're here, it's a good start. The goal gets a lot trickier. Goal, want to swim Lake Zurich. Then you gotta get in, right? It's not so easy. And once you have the goal, you usually have goals, because the goal is usually out here, and you need a couple of goals to actually get to the big one you want. So the goal is trickier. Ice swim, cold swim, 15 degrees, warm, hot, wetsuit togs, what distance, solo, relay, in Ireland, international, people doing it, fresh, salt, high or low chance of bad weather in Ireland. The weather chances of bad are always here, okay? Really clean water or probably not? I don't really care, but some people care. I'm going to do this. So I kind of stopped it at 2022. Because after that, it kind of doesn't really make any sense anymore. So what is it you want to do? And what I want to do in the next section is I want to show you some pictures. I want to help give you a little bit of inspiration. Before I do that, just a couple of things. The presentation has been put together with unbelievable care, absolutely precise. And then we threw some open water stuff into it. Like we poured some water in the keyboard, we dropped it, we deleted some slides and made some stuff corrupt. So if you have any questions, just jump in, because it's going to go where it's going to go, because it's open water, it's not precise. The second thing is, when I talk about distances, I've made them very approximate for you folks, just so you can understand, and I put them almost all in kilometers. Distances in our sport are everything. It's a difference between kind of telling the truth and not telling the truth. So Galway Bay, for me, it's 10K. The shortest distance between 2 points. English Channel is 21 miles. The fact that your swim path looked like this, and it was 60 miles of ocean, tough. That was your decision. Could have gone straight. So I'm being loose with distances, but in the real world, distances and precision is everything for our sport. So just some pictures to try to help inspire you. There used to be a swim, happens from Union Hall to Glandore. It used to be the first swim of the year in Munster. You can tell by all the wetsuits. And there was a great dinner at the end of it. 1.2K. Fabulous swim. Blast across from Union Hall to Glandore. Beautiful part of West Cork. This one will take the piss out of myself. When I did the ice mile, they made us swallow these temperature pills about this big. We tried to get Fergal Somerville to consider it a suppository, but he was too swift for that. And like a fine Formula One race course, we had a telemetry thing coming out of our back. Because they wanted to study core body temperature and breathing. And somebody decided that, well, you know, sexy bodies all go in the same sliding. So my core body temperature, and we did a 1 mile swim in the pool ahead of time to kind of calibrate these fine machines. The same time and whatever. And then they put a little red boy 200 meters down a dark lake with a bit of sun that you could barely see, and you try to find it out there somewhere. So my core body temperature stayed absolutely straight, no change, until I stopped moving my arms and it went. The other guy from Cork, 3/4 through the swim, his body temperature and his speed started to go down, his breathing went crap, and we call it the drop in our sport of ice swimming. So the ice swimming is 1.6. It's an ice mile. So if you want ice, they weren't there by the way. Sandy Cove Island, some of you are on for the swim next year. Fabulous swim, 1.8 kilometers. Going around an island is unbelievably cool. Going across a bay is unbelievably cool. Going across a channel is cool. Swimming from a prison island is cool. Swimming around 3 red boys, it ain't cool, it ain't epic. I don't know what it is, it's something. But swimming around an island is really cool, hard to cheat. And it's an epic swim. This was one of the early swims, about 40, 45 people did it. We put this red buoy, it was optional for safety purposes to go around it. That year 1 person went around it and everybody else cut inside. It was optional, we stopped with a buoy. This is the start of one of the more recent swims. We go off in groups of 30, the fastest go first, the next fastest, next fastest, next fastest. And then times are taken, and about, I don't know, 60% of people end up with medals as first, second, third in their age group, togs versus wetsuits. But the great thing is that the 30 people you start with tend to be about your speed. And if you choose to compete, you can. A lot of people come down and they say, no, I'm not competing. However, my brother-in-law is in the same heat and that guy is not beating me. This was Loch Eyn in West Cork. It's a natural tidal lagoon. There are seahorses down there. There are soft corals, and there are rapids that go in and out depending on the tide. It's an unbelievably beautiful spot in West Cork. And I have people coming from around the world who say it's the greatest place they've ever swum. And this was just some group one day that assembled. And one of the strengths we have going now in Cork, and you're building it here, is we built up this kind of Hollywood of open water swimming. And I want to explain why. Over and back English Channel relay. Over and back relay. Over and back relay. Solo swim. Solo swim. He tried twice and didn't make it in the English Channel. Over and back. Over and back relay. Over and back relay. He did a single. Then he went a single relay. Then he did Catalina, and now he's in the Triple Crown of open water swimming. This was a group that assembled one time to swim in Loch Eyn. talk about being able to feed off some great role models and some successes. We're really, really fortunate now that we have this group of experienced marathon swimmers, and it helps. Spike Island, prison, cool. Swimming from a prison, escape. This is a 2-kilometer swim, and you can see the Grimaldi liner going across, just to add a little bit of drama to it all. Almost the same distance as Alcatraz, but different. What I wanted to do was frame the Grimaldi liner in my hands to make it look like I was holding it up, but the photographer didn't quite get it right. Beautiful swim, Prison Island. The Lee swim is 2K. It's the same format as Sandy Cove, the fastest go first. When you go to Dublin, the slowest go first. So if you're the slowest swimmer in Dublin, 220 men swim by you. Can't be great for your ego. And I apologize to the guy that I ran over underneath the O'Connell Street Bridge. I just went over him. I didn't stop to say sorry. Many years ago, he probably still remembers. And here's Alcatraz, the Rock. They run a couple of swims there every year. It's an unbelievable place to tour, particularly the night tour of Alcatraz is incredibly spooky. The big swims are about 700 people. You can also go there on holiday and organize a private swim. And it is just one of the most iconic swims in the world. No one ever escaped from Alcatraz. Well, about 4,000 swims a year happen, but no one ever made it. Very cool swim. In San Francisco in California. A couple of years ago, an orange band came down and played in the St. Patrick's Day parade in Cork and didn't get killed. I thought it was amazing. So apparently Cork and Belfast had some sort of link thing. So we contacted Belfast City Council and said, you should pay for us to fly up and do a swim. So we did. It was supposed to be a 2K swim, but we were on the plane, they changed it to 4K, just to give themselves some home team advantage. This is Beginnish Island in Valencia Harbor. What's the name of the big town? It's in Cary, okay. It's a 4-mile swim. Nothing cooler than swimming around an island, unless it's a prison or a channel or whatever. So there's a sandbar. Let's see. Over here, I think. We kind of start here at low water and head off. It's kind of okay and okay and okay and okay and okay. And then you get to about here, and then the entire force of the Atlantic hits you, gets a bit of texture on the water, and then you come in for the finish, and everybody gets drunk in the pub, which is down here, and you get to see the lighthouse. 4 miles, 6K swim. What just a fantastic event. Nothing cooler than swimming around an island. This is Valencia Island, by the way, right here. Localua. It's part of the River Lee. It's kind of a lake up between Ballingeary and Inchigeelagh. That's where they speak in real Irish and play banjos and stuff, like the movie Deliverance, but kind of different. It is a swim that happens every year. It is being sold now in July on a Saturday in the afternoon. I've done the swim a number of times. You never freaking know where you are in that lake. There's no signs. It's the most confusing place in the world. You look up, and there's swimmers over there, and there's swimmers over there, and there's kayakers everywhere, and you're going, I don't know, keep swimming. Get there eventually. At a certain point in the lake, you make a dramatic left turn into this fast rushing stream, and you fly. And then that stops, and you have to slug it out to the end. So you think when you hit that stream, it's that, you're just, and it stops. And you have to swim some more. That's fresh water, by the way. This is the Blackwater River in Fermoy. From Fermoy up to the Flatley's old mansion, and back is 7K. Some people don't go up that far, but up a river, down a river, is cool swims. This was our group that came up and did Galway Bay. Apologies for the quality of the photo. The important thing is these three, they became marathon swimmers that day. Marathon swimmer starts at 10K. There's 3 levels, 10K, 10 miles, and 25K. We're never going to figure it out other than that. They became marathon swimmers that day. It was an incredibly big accomplishment for them. And they've come back to Cork as marathon swimmers. And right now in Cork, we have about 135 marathon swimmers. Now, of course, he's not happy with the 10K level. He's not even happy going for 10-mile level. He wants 25K. So, hasn't ended yet. There's still some ambition going on in that group. This was a swim from Black Rock to Cove in Cork Harbour. It was 12K. I don't think we've ever done it other than the one time. And fascinating, you have to go past the little ferry that goes across at Passage West. You start this, you go by this beautiful castle, and then you get into this lock, this depressing lock where you can't see anything. You swim by the sewage treatment plant, gets a bit warmer. And then you get to Passage West where the water squeezes down and the boats are flying by and the houses are flying by, and you think, you don't even need to move your arms, you're just going like a rocket. And then you get to the island, the great island of Cove, and you make a left turn. I think there's 250 corners on that island, because each time you get to a corner, you think that's the corner, you keep turning, you keep turning, you keep turning, and it never ends to keep turning, to keep turning, to keep turning, and eventually you get there, and it's unbelievably rough for the last 2 kilometers to get in. But the tide is with you, and I tell people, just move your arms and look good for the photograph, because you can't swim in this stuff. And we end up at the Titanic exhibit. Beautiful swim. We now go 16K from Cork itself. For those of you old enough, you might remember the movie Papillon. Steve McQueen, certainly the coolest guy in the world. Dustin Hoffman, pretty good actor. Next to Alcatraz, Devil's Island. That's like a cool prison swim. Does anybody actually know where that place is? Well, I've been my dream for years, but I didn't actually know where it is. It's in a place called French Guiana, which is just north of Brazil. So in January last year, the butterfly tattoo is fake, by the way, but they were scared to get them. So 3 of us did this swim last year. We think we were the first people ever to do it in togs. The original Papillon guy, he did it on a bag of coconuts, but that doesn't really count. And the funny thing about the swim, for me, was that it was dog rough, which you can kind of see. And in the old days, a lot of convicts, a lot of deaths, and every day somebody would die, so they'd put them in a burlap bag, they'd ring a big bell, and chuck them out, and the sharks would sort them out. And the waters today, there's no commercial fishing. It's full of fish, full of sharks. And our instructions were, sprint for the first half an hour, get your feet, sprint for the next half an hour, we've got to get across this current, and then you can take your time. So come in the first half an hour, these guys only speak kind of French, come in the first half an hour, and this guy starts yelling at the captain of the boat in French. I don't know what's going on. The captain reaches down, pulls out this big stick with a bell on the end, and holds it in the air. Well, that was gone. I was laughing so hard. Everybody shut up and started swimming. Whether he was going to ring that bell or not, I don't know. Whether the sharks still respond to it, I don't know. But it was one of the funnier things I've ever seen or not heard. That swim was 13K. This was pictured long arms. This Inishboffin, Cleggan to Inishboffin. This is Andrew Flanagan here, about 30 seconds behind me. To beat Andrew Flanagan, like it can only happen once in your entire life. Ronan Joyce beat me. He was 30 seconds ahead of me. We never saw each other. We rarely saw the kayakers. The waves were 4-meter swells. The fog rolled in at one point. The 3 guys ended up with 1 kayak, landed in the far end of the island, and the kayaker said, "I'm done." They stumbled 4 miles across the island into the pub and declared themselves the duathlon champions. But I had great memories of the day. Normally when we went out there, it was too rough to swim, and we ended up swimming in the harbor, which was typically almost as rough as the swim would have been if they'd let us do it. Strait of Gibraltar, 14K. This is Dermot Hurley out here swimming alone. Iconic swim. Between continents, a channel, the Straits of Gibraltar, Guns of Navarone, Anthony Quinn, or some of those guys. But very cool. Expensive, because it's so cool. And this is one of the things when you look at your swims, there are some swims that are really, really cool that cost a fortune, and there are some that are cheap. 2-3 weeks ago, I was in Hong Kong. They have a swim called the Cold Half. It's 15 kilometers around the back of the island. It's my second time out there. I had no intention of going back, but one of our young guys who hadn't yet become a marathon swimmer was giving me some grief over some pints at the Christmas, we didn't actually have dinner, the Christmas get-together, and said it was, you know, 4,000 euro or something, and I went, like, 4,000 Hong Kong dollars is nothing. So on the basis that I would go with him, he went, and he's now a marathon swimmer. So we had a great experience, and one of the gals from Cork went out to kayak. She was going to be in Thailand anyways, and it made sense somehow. Great swim. Rob Bohan was the first guy to swim from the Skelligs. And that's Rob there. This is lots of jellyfish here. And there's this woman filming him. I love this picture because there are times in marathon swimming, open water swimming, where you are alone. And I just love that picture. Like, he's standing there getting his thoughts together, getting ready to jump in with the jellyfish. And it's just him. Kind of alone stuff. And if you remember, you know, from Star Wars, and who's been to Skelligs? Skellig Michael? None of you?
Yeah, I have.
Okay. But I also, a few years ago, swam around it, which is a 3K swim with these massive upwellings of cold water. With every moment, you're fearing a fat American tourist is going to fall off the cliff at night. Unbelievable place. This is a picture of John Conroy. Conroy coming out of the Rottnest Island swim from Perth, Australia to Rottnest Island. It's 19.75 kilometers. Occasional some rock. So he was on top of this rock swimming. And he was doing pretty good. And he stopped for his feed. And half an hour later, he cut that rock again. Stopped for his feed. 3 hours it took him to get past that rock. That one rock with that red buoy 25 meters in front of him. There was a woman involved. He was trying to impress her. I think if there hadn't been a woman involved, he would have quit at that point. But he made the swim. He's never done anything that long since. He's got a baby on the way, so he's got an excuse. But one of the great swims in the world. This is the island, the Great Island. This is Cove down here in Cork Harbour. I was looking for a swim that guaranteed me reasonable weather. So I swam around the island. It's 26 kilometers. And we had a guy who had kayaked it 100 times. So he was involved in this expedition, and we sent him around with a GPS recorder at my swimming speed a month before at the tide I was going to go on. Because the currents are really interesting here. Like there's a tide break here, which means the tide goes this way and that way. This is passage where it's squeezed, so you want to kind of catch the tide up, and it's really savage down here. So started over here somewhere, I think. We were like a micrometer of plan. We were like, we knew exactly where we were. And wind against tide, we were fucked. So instead of catching the tide up through here, and at this point, this guy in trouble, and if you don't pick it up, you're not going to make it. There's a small stone bridge here for the boat to go under, and the water was gushing through it. I was like a salmon trying to get through this thing. It eventually went like along the stone side of the bridge, like going bloody scrape, 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 and got to here. Tide break, and I think I was swimming because the tide just flings you through there. No one's ever done it since. I was the first one to swim around Valentia Island. You can see Skelligs in the back, and that is as well as 26 kilometers. That's Bray Head out there. At Bray Head, I experienced 1.5 meter waves from 3 directions. Not really sure what you do with that, except stay on top of it and try to breathe and kick away and hope you get through it. I finished in the dark after the pubs had kind of closed, but they were all out at the chippy, so it was quite a dramatic thing coming in. And they didn't think I would be able to walk up to the pub, so I was one of those things where I was kind of walking, but my feet weren't touching the ground because they were holding me in the air. Lake Zurich. Lake Zurich was my first warm swim. It was an incredibly hot day, and they had done some blood testing on us and whatever, not for drugs, but for hydration. And I was incredibly dehydrated. You come into this giant party in the park, the bands are playing, and there's music, and there's massages, and it's non-alcoholic vegetarian barbecue. Tofu burger with some lemonade. I'd have murdered for a beer and a burger. Zurich is a great swim. It's cheap. It's impossible to get into. It's run by the Transcendental Meditation Group. Lovely people, really nice people. You can spot them about a half a mile away because they have this happiness look about them. Sort of, everything's good. This was the start of my swim in Santa Cruz, where I ended up in the hospital. Back in the days when you didn't have kind of electric lights and stuff. So I was swimming off to this island that I hadn't envisioned going that direction, through a really thick patch of kelp to touch a cliff in a storm. Yeah, it was fun. Let's see. We're now to False Bay, South Africa, 34 kilometers. I got the shirt. False Bay is 20 miles by 20 miles. It's full of fish. They don't allow nets. There's 200,000 seals in that bay, and there's 200 great whites. So this picture was taken while I was swimming. They think he's about 18, 19 feet long, taking a seal, and it was about 3 miles from where I was swimming. There's only 5 of us who ever completed the swim. We're in a kind of unique group. We kind of think we did a good job. Not a popular swim. This is a guy about to start an English Channel relay. An English Channel is 35 kilometers. He's about to start an epic English Channel relay. What I want you to notice is the imaginary brass band and the 3,000. It's awfully lonely out on that little beach. Start an English Channel relay. It's one of the guys in the water, and this is your relay team. It started because Peter Diggins in Australia, working in Sligo, had signed up for an English Channel swim 5 years in advance. And he had gotten a promotion, he had some kids, built a house, got an MBA, just never got around to doing any frickin' swimming. So when I got a hold of him, we beat him up a little bit. I'm good at that stuff. We beat him up a little bit and got him to sign up to do a relay. The guy next to him is the guy I described, who after doing the relay went back to do a solo, and then Manhattan, and then Catalina, and he's now a Triple Crown swimmer. And this guy over here is just a superb swimmer that we don't see him much anymore, Stephen Lynn. He's up your way somewhere. Peter was such a bad swimmer, and he will tell you this himself, that when he would breathe, his right knee would come up to his chin and he would go backwards. There we go. After the relay, he did sweet fuck all, came back to do the solo, and was in and out in less than an hour. And then apologized to everybody he knew for doing such a crap job of preparing. A crap job. Lovely guy. This is the swim around Manhattan Island. It's 47 kilometers. However, the first mile was against the current, and then you get the tide the whole rest of the way. Still a tough swim, and unfortunately I breathed to the right, so I never actually saw Manhattan, which was on my left. But when that guy Sullenberger landed the plan in the Hudson, I said, yeah, I've been there. I know that water. And swimming around Manhattan, if there's a cooler island to swim around, I have not heard of it. That's a cool island to swim around. This has nothing to do with me, but this is one of the swims in New York where they're off towards the Statue of Liberty. I did see the Statue of Liberty during my Manhattan swim, and it was just, awe-inspiring kind of thing to look up and see. This is the island of Jersey, which is just off the French coast. It's 54 kilometers. And this is the tracker. What I want you to notice is that the same amount of time here compared to here. Goes around in a circle. And being kind of clever and smart, kind of swim to take advantage of the tide going around because it's a really long way. The tidal range in Jersey, when I did it, was 39 feet that day. So when you go out to get in your boat in Jersey, there's your boat, and the water starts about a mile out that way, and your boat's on the sand. You came at the wrong time of the day. And up here, I have this distinct memory of thinking, I was swimming downhill for 20 minutes. It's like a little bit of body surfing, but you just keep going and going and going and going and going and going. And if you keep your arms moving, you eventually get back to where you start. Manhattan's a cool swim. This is also pretty cool because it's further. And we get to count the further even though the tide's working in our favor. This is one of the lakes in Arizona. It was an old creek. They dammed it off several places. And during the daytime, they use hydropower to keep the kettles going. And at night, they use nuclear power and pump the water back up. And you swim dam to dam, which is a very cool concept. 4 marathons in 4 days. Fresh water. It's 14K, 14K, 22K, and 11K. And it's a different kind of tired. It's a different kind of tired. And my favorite story is there was a guy from New York who was the slowest guy. And he's a lovely bloke, and he did the channel this year. And in the 22K swim, he came in and he was furious. He's muttering about fucking birds, fucking birds, fucking birds. What are you on about? He goes, I was catching the second to last guy. I was going to be something other than dead last. And I was coming up on his blind side. He couldn't possibly see me. And the birds, what birds? He goes, you know the vultures that have been circling me for the last 3 days? And we thought about it. There were some birds circling this guy. But you look up and you see mountain goats and stuff. And one of the swims, it was like a 2-hour drive on an unmade road to get to, the middle of nowhere. One of the swims is in a place called Canyon. So if you remember John Wayne riding, through the canyon that does this, it's one of those canyons that have been flooded. Certainly one of the top 5 prettiest places I've ever been in my life. But 4 marathons, 4 days, I'd put it at 80 kilometers. Tough old 4-day period. The great thing about it is I got to make friends, because a lot of the things I go to, if I'm unlucky, you go there, say hello, swim, and everybody disappears. But this one, you at breakfast and dinner and stuff together. This was one of the early Cork Distance Weeks. And the story of Cork Distance Week is kind of unusual. After the Santa Barbara Channel Swimming Association got going, my partner gave me a call. By the way, I don't make money out of swimming, so when I say partner, just the guy who helped me start it, and we're the guys who became the first life members to fund it. He called me up and he said, we had this 15-year-old swam a couple of months ago. He's like the most mature person we ever met. Let's put him on the board. And I went, fantastic idea. However, check the insurance thing. Maybe we need to make like an associate board member. And you got to talk to his parents. So I was in California and I went to the board meeting, and the grandparents drove their grandson down to his first board meeting at age 16. How cool is that? And he said to me, oh yeah, he said, my grandmother and I were going to go to Dover next year for like 6 weeks to train, and I'm going to do the channel. Anyway, Dover's the most depressing place in the entire world. You'll kill yourself in 6 weeks. Don't do that. Come to Ireland, we're trained anyways. So I got a message from him, a couple weeks later going, my grandmother and I booked our flights for 2 weeks. We're looking forward to your distance training week thing. Oh shit, I'm in trouble now. I have to admit to the kid that I was just blowing smoke, or I have to organize something. So we organized the first distance week. And it was 14 days, started at 5 o'clock in the morning every day and 6 o'clock in the evening, and it was tough. It's now 9 days, the distance week. And the reason it's 9 days is you don't know how long your big swim is going to take. So you may think it's a week, it's 9 days. get used to it. It's going to take longer. And I just want to give you some idea of who was there. Every year it's a different group. He had already swum the English Channel solo. Let me tell you who had kind of come with a pedigree. English Channel solo, over and back relay, solo, solo, over and back relay. He'd swum the channel 34 times, including 2 doubles and a triple attempt that took 52 hours. He was unsuccessful. His name's Kevin Murphy. He was a pretty good swimmer. And she's the channel general. She's trained hundreds of channel swimmers. So that's kind of the people that were there in advance. And then afterwards, she did an over and back English Channel solo swim. This is the guy who started it. He did his solo in the channel, but he later wrote that the channel was much easier than the 6 hours in Cork in 11-degree water, the qualifier. He went on to do a solo, 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 solo. He did a solo, and then he went back a couple years later and did another solo butterfly, as you would. Solo. The only black man with 2 nipple rings, he solo, solo. So we had this incredible group of people who had the dream, they had the goal, and this was part of their journey. And there were some people who they found training partners for the first time in their lives that trained at exactly the same speed they did, and they hung on to them for 28 sessions over 14 days. The Cork Distance Week, we're on our 9th year. The people who got in early paid €50. The last 6 paid $1,000, and the next person's paying $2,500. I don't want any more, so I'm kind of doing a Ryanair thing on the price. And they get an interesting training, but mostly they get to train with people with the same kind of goals. People from Australia, United States, anywhere. Okay, so those are some pictures. Oh, the Distance Week is about 100, 120 kilometers over 9 days, depending on your speed. So the journey, the single most important thing is get a medical certificate. Sounds silly, but I've had to produce a medical certificate 3 times this year. One for Hong Kong. I'm accepted in the Boston Light Swim in August, and I'm accepted in the 30K Kalamata in September. Got to have the medical cert. They don't want to talk to you otherwise. And there's forms and stuff and blah, 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 blah. The second thing is a swim resume. And this is where I start talking about distances. Some organizers, they want to see the URL. They're not interested that you say you swam Galway Bay. They want you to send them the URL of the Galway Bay site so they can check it themselves. Or they want to see the proof. And they don't want to hear it was 22K when they measured at 15. The channel boards late last night that said they have a relay team, they've already done Manhattan, already done Catalina, they're on something, but one of their members has dropped out. Within 2 hours, they got their other member who sent them a medical certificate, a swim resume, and proof that they had already done their 2-hour qualifier and had already joined the Channel Swimming and Piloting Federation. With the credentials, these swims, the more popular swims, book up fast. To book an English Channel relay, you're looking 2 or 3 years in advance. Boston Light, a lottery. Kalamata, it takes 12 swimmers. So build up a resume. And by the way, when I put the word recent, if you swam the English Channel 15 years ago and you haven't done anything since, no one will take you because you are a hazard. You think you're good. Okay. And then the journey. And by the way, fire away with questions, don't be intimidated. The first thing is get a sane goal booked. Okay? Booked. Plus whatever you need before and after. So you want to swim the English Channel in 5 years? Pause it down and get your boat. Fantastic. By the way, you probably need to do like get that booked. And you probably need to do a 15K the year before that, get that booked. we have a problem in the sport with depression. And that is somebody does their big English Channel swim and they wake up in the morning and they have nothing to do. There's no reason to go to the swimming pool. There's no picture on the refrigerator or the screensaver anymore. What's coming up? There's nothing. So we're encouraging people always to have something else after that. It can be much less dramatic, but something. You have to stay physically healthy. Everybody training for a big swim gets injured. So we say, get something, because trust me, you're going to get physically injured. This is where technique comes in. I'm not a swimming coach, so I don't understand all that stuff. There have been some unbelievably bad swimmers that have swum the English Channel. So as long as your technique doesn't injure you, now we could all do with some private swim lessons. We could all do with improving our technique. Coble down to Cork, she took 28 something hours to swim the English Channel. She holds the record for the longest swim. This woman cannot swim. She's a fantastic swimmer. I once saw a piece of driftwood outrace her to the end of the swim. And it was a waterlogged piece of driftwood. And I love Jackie dearly, and she would go, yeah, pretty much true. The next thing is, you have to do the research. You know, when is the swim? How do you apply? How do you get into it? How do they supply crew? Do they supply boats? Where do you stay? How do you get there? How does your stuff move from point A to point B? Visualize. So the first time I went to Hong Kong, I was visualizing the swim. And I want everybody to close their eyes again. This is my visualization. You get to the start of the swim, it's so dog rough that half the people decide not to swim. Which is fortunate, because half the boats couldn't make it there because the water's so rough. The rest of us set off, and somebody thought they saw a shark. And half of the rest of the people got off. And then coming around that final corner, it was so unbelievably tough that everybody quit except me. And then when the boat conked out a mile from shore, I tied the rope around the boat, pulled it in, got them all safely in, and the frickin' dog had fallen off the back of the boat, and I had to go out and rescue the dog and give him mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. And then I got my picture in the newspaper. In the actual swim, the professional swimmer from Germany, who had a custom-made feeding pole out of like titanium. Imagine a selfie stick that somebody spent €1,000 to have custom made for their arm length and the coloration of their face. And he was asking me like what my feeding stick, see what I'm doing for a feeding stick. I bought 12 500 milliliter bottles from the shop and filled them with carbo drink, and they were going to throw me bottles. He quit after 10K because there was a mechanical problem with his feeding stick. He quit. And then mentors. I had a couple of mentors for English Channel, which were very important to me. And what I say to people is, find yourself some mentors. I can help. And the mentors ideally should be exactly your age, with exactly how many kids you have. Divorced or still married, depending on what you have. Working in a similar kind of business, but 3 years ahead of you in open water swimming. So they kind of remember what you're going through. What you don't want is your kid being mentored by Einstein in physics. Einstein probably not going to speak the same language as your kid. So Kevin Murphy, the guy that swam the channel 34 times, love him dearly. What a lousy mentor he would be. Kevin just put his goggles on and swam. Doesn't remember any of it. Training with partners. So first of all, there's a safety thing, training with partners. We have a woman training for the English Channel in Catalina this year. Sunday, she did a 26-kilometer swim in a 25-meter swimming pool. And I was the half 9 to half 11 person. So there was somebody for every minute of that swim. And I called her up at the end and said, where's the gap in the schedule? She said, oh, geez, we come in at 9:30. To swim that alone is hard. It's nearly impossible mentally. But if you arrange somebody to come in at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and you now quit, you're dead. So the moment you involve partners in your training, it all helps. So I tell the story about Finbar Hederman or Lisa Cummings, that are swimmers from Cork. When they swam the English Channel, there were 100 of us in the water with them. We weren't in Dover, but we were there the month before, the week before, the year before, training with them whenever they needed somebody to swim with them. So they didn't just swim for themselves. Damn well had to make it because we had invested in them. Next one is log and logistics. I keep a log if anybody's interested in a log. It's how many meters do I plan to do this year? And I break it down by day. Mine is probably going to be a little more ambitious than yours. But if you don't have a plan, you don't know how you're doing on your journey. There are some people who will swim 60,000 meters a week training for the channel, and there's others who will swim 12K a week. You met Bernard Lynch. He did about 2.2 million meters in the year before he swam the English Channel. That's what his coach, Eilish Burns, said, you have to do, Bernard. And by the time Bernard got to Dover, he needed to be successful. If she had told him it was 800,000 meters, he still would have showed up, 100% convinced he'd done all the training he needed to swim the channel. So the log and the goal and the journey, you got to put them together. The logistics of it is, how are you going to do those swims? And I'll come to that in a minute. You have to enjoy the journey. If you wake up in the morning and you dread going to the swimming pool, or you dread going to the ocean, you're not going to follow this through for 3 years and be a success. You have to enjoy this. You have to allocate the time. I'm swimming on average 2 miles plus a day, and I don't swim every day. So there's a number of hours in the week I've got to put aside. I meet people and they go, yeah, I'm signed up for the English Channel. I'm doing my first ever Ironman the week before that. My wife's having quadruplets. I've just started a new business. I'm building a house. My parents are having their 50th anniversary and 4,000 people are coming. We're having a barbecue at the house. And I'm getting a hair transplant that week. Well, you got a little bit going on that time. You know, yeah, maybe you need to focus and spread all that out. It can be a long journey. You got to stay motivated, focus. Crew is interesting. Within a week of signing up for the English Channel, better know who's going to be on the boat with you. Not the week before you go, going, anybody free? And by the way, one of the magic things we have in Cork is that we crew for each other. The people who come to the distance week, they'll end up in Dover 3 weeks later with somebody they just met on their crew, that they've been swimming together with for 9 solid days and eating dinner with. So crew is incredibly important, and you need luck. When the weather is bad, God can't make the swim. If the conditions are bad, you can't make the swim. One of our distance week guys went to New Zealand a few years ago to swim between the islands. 3 days after he arrived, started the swim, weather packed up halfway through. He waited a month in New Zealand. His wife was not impressed. He waited a month, got halfway across, and the boat ran aground on an island as the tide went out. He swam around the boat for 6 hours until the tide lifted the boat up, and then he was unsuccessful. Not exactly lucky. My great luck story, I trained for this 60-kilometer swim around Jersey. I think I told you before it was 54. I got it somewhere. You can be moving at 17K an hour speed against land because the tide is that strong. Weather wasn't great, got in the water, I'm swimming along, and all of a sudden they yell, get out, get out, get out, get out. My first question was, did I get further than Cliff got last week? They went, no, Cliff was... I said, well, how long was it in the water? They said, 5 minutes and 18 seconds. I said, that's the question. Did anybody ever have a shorter swim? They went, no. And I went, world record! The crew was gutted. And I finally had to say to the captain, look, this is like the classiest thing I've ever done in my entire life, to take this with a grin. You got to stop beating you down, because I could change any moment and throw the biggest temper tantrum in the world. I trained 750,000 meters for that swim. I was in the water for 5 minutes and frickin' 18 seconds, and the weather was so bad I had to get out. I went back the next year and completed it. Luck. Conditions. Okay, the English Channel. This is the English Channel, and this bulb sticking out here is France. You put your thumb on it and the water goes faster? Do you know what I mean by that? Bernoulli's principle. And it squeezes the tide. So along here, the water currents are incredibly fast. And I'll explain to you about this young swimmer who was coming in like this, and next thing you know, he did this. I'll explain it in a minute. My first English Channel swim was unsuccessful. Started at 3 in the morning, the flags were flapping in the marina. Probably wasn't a good start. Out of the 13 boats, 3 went out. Probably wasn't a good sign. I did kind of 8 hours, and at the end I was heavily concentrating on not swimming down at 45 degrees. One of my crew was sick in the harbor and never saw him. The other guy was standing by the doorway about to be sick, and I had one guy who's a world-class sailboat racer. And he, at 8 hours, he went, and I got out. I went back 60 days later and land, but up here, I didn't like the color of the sky, so I gave it a bit of a 2-liter coat of vomit, and then I gave it a second 2-liter coat of vomit. Like, and then there's that moment in open water swimming where you have your 3 choices. You can get out, you can cry for your mommy, or you can keep swimming. So I dropped the bottle and kept swimming, having puked up the sky twice. 5 years later, I had a bad pint, and I was in my toilet, naked, shivering, hanging on, throwing up, thinking, the last time I was this sick, I was swimming the English Channel. The boats are 40, 50 feet long, give you some idea what they are in the channel. And English Channel is different than most swims. The first thing is there are no landmarks. None. It is 1 minute it's over there, and the next minute it's over there. The ferries are going back and forth, the tankers are going like a highway in front of you. Dover's got some lights, Calais' got some lights. You're moving around the water ship and you have no idea where you are. Traditional wisdom is, put your head down, swim, shut up, and don't look up. And throws you up, throws you back, and you can see I got the last bit of the 3rd tide. The water is massive. When it moves, you don't have choices. And even when you're close, I'll go back to that chart again. Even when you're here, more people fail here than you could possibly believe. They've just been swept past the point. There's nothing in your life, nothing in your sporting life. You're running the marathon, right? You get to the finish, and all of a sudden, you're on one of those backwards people movers, and the sidewalk is moving backwards. No. Maybe you're going up a little hill, maybe the wind hits you. But if you keep doing this in a marathon, you will get to the end. If you keep doing that in marathon swimming, you may end up over there. So, the story's Niall O'Cruley, his fiance, wrote a great thing that said he had been here for like an hour, and her fiance was drowning. And you know Niall, I think. There was no power in his legs. His arms were useless. The only thing moving him ahead was the exhale out of his nose. And this was the man drowning that she was going to have kids with. Now Niall eventually made it in. Danny screamed across the channel and got to here. And it was one of the biggest tide differences in the last 50 years. 28 feet of water came up the channel. He was 3 miles from the coast, and he was feeding every half an hour. 3 miles, 3 miles, 3 miles, 3 miles, 3 miles, 3 miles, in the dark, 3 miles, 3 miles, 3 miles. He landed 16 miles from where I landed. He almost made it to Belgium. The Hall of Fame pilot had a video that said, Danny, I can honestly say you've taken me someplace I've never been before. 5.5 hours in the dark, 3.5 miles from shore. And he kept going. So it's a nasty, tricky old place. This is Lisa Cummings. She had a dream, swim the English Channel. She had a goal. She booked it for 2 years in advance. And as part of the journey, she called me. She said, I'm Lisa, I'm from Blackrock, and I want to swim the channel. I said, great. Any chance you're going to be Cork? She said, no, I'm Blackrock and Cork. And I said, okay, that's like 2 miles from where I live. Have we ever seen you before? She said, no, but I just ran the Dublin Marathon. So she came down in the winter and watched us swim at Sandy Cove about 6 times, and then she got in one day. This is her getting in her first swim. You all remember this scene. She was in the water for about 3 minutes and took a very happy picture. And the picture she used later, and I'll describe why. On one of the years, we ended up with 3 swimmers for the English Channel the very end of September. End of September is not a bad time, but if you miss your tide because of the weather, there's not a lot of season left. There's no season left. So this is the guy who swam the solo and went back and did butterfly the next time. Butterfly. Actually, what very few people know is he made the turn in France and headed back freestyle, and after an hour his boat said, okay, Sylvain, you've had enough. He's French, by the way. This is Lisa. Her training was going so well for the channel, she decided to up it to an over and back. Never in the history of English channels anybody ever done an over and back not having done a solo. People were calling me from around the world going, you need to tell her no. And I was going, you don't understand. Lisa spent 54 hours in the water in the last 5 days in Cork, in the ocean. 54 hours. And this was 16-year-old Owen O'Keefe, kind of my protege, who was going to be the youngest in Ireland ever to swim the channel. So they go over to Dover, the weather's crap, the neap tide window goes, 5, 6, 7 days. They choose to stick around for the spring tide, which is more difficult because there's more water running. That's when you get the 28 feet of water going up and down the channel. And they had to swim before 3 o'clock on the Monday morning, otherwise the next group of swimmers were coming in, and that was it for the year. They were done. And this is they're trying to look happy on Thursday. Well, time is running out. Lisa got in the water 8 o'clock in the morning on Saturday morning. The 3 of us were there to wish her well. She had a good group. He got in the water at 8 o'clock on Sunday morning. "36 hours later, Lisa finished the over and back. She didn't stop in France to have lip fillers. That was a kind of a added delight. She's in the Hospitalitos group. We have this group that's gone to the hospital after a swim. Her arm was falling off. And ignore this bit of red stuff here, because that's the pen got confused. The tide took her up, the tide took her back, the tide took her over. Then she came, and the tide took her. Something funny happened. We didn't expect this because we were being advised. And she landed under the nuclear power plant where they're supposed to shoot terrorists when they come in to blow up the power plant. She got on the boat, came back to Dover. We wished her well. We threw her and her ship off the boat and put Owen on at 2 o'clock on Monday morning because he only had an hour left to start or not finish. Sylvain eventually finished the swim, looking very good. And young Owen, as I described to you, at one point he was here heading into this point. 15 minutes later he was here. Then he went down here. Then the tide took him along and he landed here. I know Owen really, really well. And at a certain point I stopped him and said, you can beat 10 hours, Owen, but I need you to pick it up by 10% stroke rate. So his stroke rate went from not quite that fast. And every now and then I would say you have 4,200 meters to go. And every now and then I'd yell out another number. Always lower. He was over here. And then he was over here. And then he was here. And then he was like, how many meters is it? I don't know. This is he and I on the rocks. The rest of the crew was supposed to swim in with us, but they didn't think they could make it because the water was moving so fast. And then Owen wanted a souvenir and gave me like a boulder this big. And no one looks this good having finished the channel. But 16-year-old, not a bit of worry on him, a happy boy, finished English Channel. He and Sylvain, I'll show you their celebration in a minute. When you're done with one of these swims, first of all, you usually get some gear like a hat, a towel, and a shirt and stuff. I actually have. You've never seen it, Catherine, but I hide it. So somewhere in Dover, there's this kind of weird caravan park. and they put names of their successful swimmers on the wall. Part of my visualization after I failed was get my name on the wall. I know her, I trained with her, I met him, I know her really well. He was the world record holder on the channel. I've swum with him a couple of times, behind him. I went to her wedding. He was one of my training partners. I know her. Irish relay, know her. He was a training partner. I know her. I've swum with her. All of my friends are on the wall. There's about 200 names, and I know about 150 of them. So it's a celebration. These were the 3 people in Cork that swam in 2005. She did the over and back relay and then decided that she'd have a go at the solo. And this was our coach, Eilish. Cork County Council did something nice for us. And this is the relay team I was talking about before. So Peter, who can't swim, the guy can really swim well, Triple Crown, which is a big deal. And this guy had done the over and back relay the year before, or a couple of years before. He was the team manager. The other guy was Ray. Ray was the alternate. Useless sod, never got wet. They didn't need him. But he went back the next year and did a solo. He bent it over, he'd seen it, he crewed it, touched the water, he tasted the water, it demystified it for him. It became his goal, trained hard for a year, did a solo from useless alternate who never got wet on a relay to solo swimmer. I love that. Dermot Hurley, the guy I showed you in Gibraltar, he set the Irish record. To say he was happy. He got business cards printed up. I mean, he was delighted. I'm sure he's got a tattoo somewhere that we've never seen. And then young Owen, who was much faster than him, went down to break the record and didn't. And then this young superstar girl, she went down to break the record and didn't. And the legend of Dermot grew. And then 4 old guys went down to swim together. And we completed the swim. And for 6 hours, we refused to tell Dermot our time. We had beaten his time. And then Fanula Walsh from Clare now holds the channel record. She didn't wait 6 hours. I mean, she called me on the last stroke from the mobile phone. I beat your record. She was a happy camper. When we went up to Belfast, we took the guy who won the Lee Swim, and they had their local champion. They increased it from 2K to 4K. He got lost. This guy wasn't looking, and I might have steered him into one of those big red metal navigational buoys out there. And I didn't hit him, but he might have just kind of not looked and gone into it, and some old guy won it. I was happy. Coach Eilish for the first Champion of Champions, which is a 5-mile get out for a while, 3-mile get out for a while, 1-mile race. It's just been organized for Waterford for July. Tough day out, 9 miles of swimming. Coach Eilish was supposed to do it, and when she showed up, she said, yeah, maybe she wouldn't do the whole thing. And we said to her, that's really good, Eilish, because we never thought you had it in you anyways. And a whole bunch of us had pledged 50 each to the RNLI on the basis that we knew we wouldn't have to pay off. So Eilish is running up and down the shore with a wad of 50 notes, screaming that she's completed the Champion of Champions. We knew how to motivate the woman. We knew how to motivate. We were delighted to pay the money. This was Lake Zurich. This was Lisa Cummings on the beach with her sister and Imelda. Imelda has crewed so many times in Dover, we joke that she's got a family there. So Lisa finished and Owen got needed as motivation. So they're in front of their place in Dover with Owen's dad. Owen didn't want his dad on the boat, he wanted me and his uncle. So his dad was not feeling great about the whole thing, but kept smiling. And Owen and Sylvan celebrating in front of all the signs and the flags and stuff. There's a pub there where people write their names on the wall. This was the John Conroy, who was the guy managing that relay. I used to have a channel party in my house for a number of years, so this was a collection of channel swimmers. The people are holding ILDSA medals, and she eventually married him. They met channel swimming. And this is Steve Redmond, the first guy to do the Ocean 7 from Bally to Hob. Okay, so dream, goal, the journey. Everybody's been far too quiet. Questions, problems, observations. Are you afraid of sharks? Yes.
When the motivation, how do you handle the motivational piece?